One of the highlights at Robert Morris University this year was the fact that we got to see a team reached that had never been reached before, the women's lacrosse team. In our 7 years there, we had never had a women's lacrosse player part of our ministry, let alone come to our weekly meeting. Well, the first week of school last fall, we had 2 players come, and they started bringing their teammates until the point where we had 9 lacrosse players coming. Eventually, one of them later in September came to faith in Christ, and then one came to faith in Christ in October, and 2 in November. And they got involved with a small group led by a rower. This rower came to faith in Christ through Candi's ministry a year ago. So now we have a rower leading a small group of young believers and non-believers, and then one of the girls that was coming gave her life to Christ at our winter retreat in Ohio. So 5 lacrosse girls came to faith last year as best we can tell, and seemingly we're growing and all that. So definitely a highlight. Another highlight was we had some of my football players inviting the women's basketball players to come. That's another hard sport to get athletes because of their time commitment. And so one of the girls from Spain came. She's a professed atheist, and she brought 2 of her teammates and later a 3rd one. Well, after her first AIA night, where she said she was so nervous and scared to death, she ended up saying she loved it, she felt at home, she was so glad she came. And afterwards, one of my football players that I taught how to share, equipped him so that he could share his faith, he got these solarium cards, which are basically like a pre-evangelism type of tool to get you to the gospel eventually. And so he got these solarium cards out and began to share them with these 3 girls, and then later got to go through the gospel. And then Candi, a couple weeks later, asked if these girls wanted to get together. So her and her rower got together with, I think now 4 or 5 girls, and she shared the gospel with them. And at least they knew how to become a Christian, although none of them indicated any decision for Christ. However, they kept coming to the weekly meeting, loving it, came to the end of the year banquet at our house, big social. And then just in the beginning of June, we found out that the girl from Spain, the professed atheist, finally gave her heart to Jesus. So that was just exciting news. As far as the guys are concerned, we didn't see that much fruit this year in terms of salvation. We did have a basketball player come to faith in Christ, but most of it was just the equipping. I spent most of my time just teaching these guys how to lead, how to prepare talks, how to do evangelism. So the theme this year was spiritual multiplication. And so I meet every week with about 8 guys, and Candi meets with about 8 or 9 girls at Robert Morris. And then as regional director, I oversee our staff on our campuses, and we travel to each campus every year. And then we try to open up new campuses, expand the influence of Athletes in Action. For instance, last fall, I brought all of our staff into Philadelphia, and through a bunch of emails and phone calls, just kind of cold calls, we ended up going to 7 different campuses in hopes that we could begin AIA ministry. And it looks like 2 of those have opened up for AIA ministry. So our new ministry in Temple is now going to expand to the Philadelphia University of the Sciences and the University of Philadelphia. So that's exciting as well. And then as far as regional director goes, we just started a international partnership with South Africa. So we're hoping to get staff and then students to go to South Africa beginning in the spring and then into the summer next year. So thanks to each of you for making this possible. Thank you for investing in the Ministry of Athletes in Action. We really appreciate you.